A bottleneck in some of the food that we consume just because of the lag of trying to get goods here over to the UK?
Yeah, for sure. The problem is, of course, perishables, because they can't wait for a week, right? If I'm a buyer of fresh food at a large retailer, I never see the product that I buy, because I buy a truck of strawberries, for argument's sake. The moment I buy them, they're already getting older. And then there is a clock ticking, right? And at a certain moment, you can't consume them anymore. You have to dispose them or whatever. So if there's any hiccups at borders, because of, I don't know, paperwork or whatever, or just traffic jams, whatever, this will have tremendous impact on the rest of the supply chain. We see, for instance, other elements like frozen depots and warehouses all over Europe, including the UK. They're full. They're just full. There's frozen products everywhere. It means that the price of stock keeping is already rising, and somehow that will be in your cost price structure. Somehow that will find itself in the price on the shelf that you and I as consumer will pay. So all these elements will have some sort of a knock-on effect.
I think forecasting and planning, it's difficult, but when you start taking into things like consideration, such as your inventory, and then looking at storage cost and tracking and everything else that adds on to that, I'm trying to think of what those margins are going to look like, because they're quite tightly squeezed already, and typically they're based on volume. So now that you bring in less volume and you've got other surcharges that are added on top, I'm trying to figure out how profitable that is.
I think the volumes obviously will be under pressure. Any business model that is dependent on volume, you have to look very, very careful if that model will survive. I'll give you two things to consider. One, for instance, yesterday in Holland, in my home country, they declared a lockdown until January 16, I believe. So all the businesses actually were hoping for Christmas sales to make up for a little bit of the problems that they've had over the last 10 months. They will be denied that profit, if you like. But other than also, they have just been building up stocks leading to Christmas. All that stock, or part of that stock, will be unsold. So it's working capital, it's product that will deteriorate, so there will be an awful lot of waste. But a lot of them will have cash problems and cash constraints and might fall over. So that's something to take into consideration as an investor, obviously. The other thing is, I think in general, we're looking too much at price and volumes anyhow. For certain players, price is a very important discriminating element of the marketing mix. If you're a German discounter, you will be the best and the cheapest, because that's what you're good at. And nobody will beat the German discounters on price. They can try, but they can't, right? That's their thing. They're very good at. So the others have two different choices. You're either better or you're different, because you can't be cheaper. The other guys are cheaper. So you have to focus on being better or different. It's also an element where I focus on in my new book that has been published on Amazon the other day, After Price, Long Live the Service, because you can't all just focus on price. You have to start improving your bottom line, especially if your volume drops, as we said earlier. You have to start making more money, and you have to deserve the money. And the only way to deserve the money is being either better or different. There are no other flavors. If you're not better or not different, the only route is being cheaper, and you enter the race to the bottom, which is a disaster for your company, which is a disaster in the end for your shareholders. But actually, it's also a disaster for the third world, because by this, entertaining this race to the bottom and entertaining a very low cost price, and just focus on the lower cost price, it does mean that we will start importing more goods from third world countries where there are environmental issues by these activities. There might be labor issues, child labor, all sort of elements that you can think of. And actually, it's our fault, because all we're looking here is at the lowest possible price.
Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe for conversations just like this.